We are live.
We're live. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Tosetti. I am the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons. I'm the vice president of The Savvy Life.
And we are both cash flow planners. And you might be wondering what a cash flow planner is. Well, I say that we are glorified home economics teachers, and Kevin gets mad at me when I say that.
It's just a little... I prefer something a little more flattering.
Yes. Well, that being said, the idea of what it is that we do is we actually help people to create spending plans, right? Money is chaotic in this day and age. It's going so many different places so quickly, and we just help create calm among the chaos. We help clients to organize where their money's going. And then when they'd like, one of the things that we do is we help them to change their habits around their spending, which if you've ever tried to change a habit, you know how challenging that can be. So having an outside resource that can guide and especially based on what other people have done and what they've been successful on, that's what we do.
And a lot of people ask, what's the difference between a budget and a spending plan? And the answer to that is spending plan sounds better. We want to focus on it's your ability to spend the money you have. You need to have a plan to spend the money you have rather than a budget that keeps you from doing things. All right. So really it's just a point of view. If you set this up properly, you now have permission to enjoy the things that you want to do. And that's really what our aim is how can you enjoy life as much as possible now, being responsible and saving for the future. But the idea is to have a plan that will let you do what you want to do.
Yeah. And actually, I'll add to that. One of the reasons why I use the term that, that we're glorified home economics teachers is because there's an element of what we do about talking about people's personal finances from a lifestyle perspective. So when we're talking to clients, we're talking about their spending on food, their enjoyment of it, their spending on clothes, their enjoyment of that. And so we really do need to have a very idea of their home economics.
Yeah.
And so that we can help them to create a plan for them to live the life that they want to live. So just to take that full circle. Yeah.
So having a plan is incredibly important, but it's just a piece of paper on a wall if you don't implement that plan and take it into action. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the whole concept of taking action, making that first step and going out there and actually doing things.
Right. I would say a big aspect of the other work that we do with clients is to help to create accountability, right? Which is it's kind of like the word budget. For some people, accountability is like, punishment. No. It's not that at all. It's just that we have a tendency to take care of things when we know that we're accountable to somebody else, which is it's kind of sad, actually.
It's unfortunate, but it is human nature. Yeah.
It is human nature, right? And that's one of the things we do is we work within human nature to try to get people toward their goals. So that is a piece of it, but also a piece of what we do is getting them to take action in the first place. So once their financial advisor has suggested that they work with us or somebody has contacted us through our website, then what we do is get them to take action along the steps along the way. But what about just either picking up that phone the first time and if you needed that level of help, or maybe just on a small scale you wanted to make some changes, but every day goes by and you want to make that change, and every day goes by and you want to make that change. And I actually just thought of an example of that. One of the biggest drains that we've seen over the years is on storage units, right? So storage units are, and part of that problem with that particular expense or category is that it's, to an extent, you don't see it, right? It's off-site. You're not running into it, in your home. And if you're getting billed automatically, you're really not seeing it, right? So maybe you see that charge come up on your credit card every month and you get that little kind of uncomfortable feeling, but you don't take action. And then the next time and the next time and the next time. So what is going to make you finally pull the trigger, right? And so that's the big question. What is going to make you finally do that? And that is it. Unfortunately, that can be, it's the beginning of the year. It's January 1st. And I know that now's the time that I got to do right by my money. So there's an outside trigger, right?
Usually it's something, if not traumatic, then noteworthy. So
that's good.
Okay, so noteworthy like the beginning of the year. Traumatic like I just lost my job and I have to move. Well, now I really have to clean the storage unit out, I have no choice. And the question becomes, do I pack it up and get another storage unit in another town, or do I take that time to do that? Okay. So again, human nature says we'll keep doing the same thing until a substantial outside force redirects us. And so what you're talking about is in those cases where what causes those outside forces, or in some cases an outside force and inside force, or something where something clicks in your head and you say, that does it, I'm going to make that change.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the work that we do it's funny, I was talking with a new financial advisor today, and I told him, our secret sauce when we're working with clients is to get them working towards something enjoyable. We are not, we don't beat people up over the head. It's just, a lot of times people feel bad enough as it is. There's no reason to make them feel any worse for anything. So making them feel bad about their particular situation is not helpful whatsoever. But if we can flip things and show them, look, you have these long-term goals and you have some short-term goals. And within 6 months to a year, we can, based on the spending plan we're putting together for you, we can get your family to Disney World, or we can, whatever that goal might be. But you have to go ahead and, as you talked about, you wanted to let go of that storage unit, or reduce your cable bill, or streamline your spending on food. So sometimes it's the trigger for taking action is actually looking around at the things that you want to do that you're not able to do right now. So it's thinking of, wow, I'd really love to do that. Well, don't love to do it. Take action.
I'm going to start down a path here, and I can.
Looking forward to this.
You're looking forward to now. In a minute, you're going to go, but it will turn out all right.
Is it a tell on me?
No.
Okay, good.
No,
go for it.
It is not. It's the fact that there is a lot to be learned by looking at how people train animals and train dogs and horses and other animals. And what the good trainers do is they really emphasize positive reinforcement as opposed to negative, because they've proven that positive is about 10 times as effective. So beating somebody up to say, spend less or I'm going to hit you is not effective. The other thing that they do when you're training animals is that you do the positive reinforcement, and you do very small steps with very short-term rewards, and you keep stressing that and building it. And that's how you get a dog or a cat to do amazing things, one step at a time, and say, all right, put your paw here. Here's a cookie. Now turn your head this way. Here's a cookie. And then come back later. Can you put your paw there? Oh, you remembered it. Good. You get a cookie. And I don't want to oversimplify or say that we treat our clients like dogs and cats, but those principles are sound, and they're sound for people as well as animals. And so the whole idea is that when we try and get people to take actions, what we do is we ask them, kind of going back to what you said, what motivates you in the long term and the short term? Everybody wants to save for the retirement. And that's great, but if you're 25 years old, that's a long way off. Some people have that fortitude to stay driven on that. Other people, they don't. What are your short-term goals? I want to go to Disneyland next year. All right, you have 9 months to save to go to Disneyland. Make yourself a thermometer. You should see in the fundraisers. How much money do I need? How am I progressing up there? Hey, I paid for the plane ticket. I paid for the hotel. I paid for the tickets into the park. I paid for the meals. Oh, now we have the extra money to go buy the mouse ears. I mean, it's the whole thing of setting very clear, obvious, short goals that you can achieve on a regular basis so that you can get that positive reinforcement. And it isn't that we're out to trick and manipulate clients.
No.
I mean, shoot, I do the same thing when I'm motivating myself. That's how I get things done. What are the short-term goals and steps that I can go ahead and check off the list? I accomplished that. I'm getting further to my goal. It's just how we're wired. And if you take advantage of that, it makes it so much easier to do that. And you're not fighting that whole thing of, oh my God, here's this tremendous mountain I have to climb, and it looks so daunting. You're just going to take the first couple of steps. That's doable. All right? Anybody can do that, and then take a couple more. And I think that breaking down into manageable sizes makes it much easier to take the action. It's not so overwhelming.
No, I absolutely love that, and that falls straight into the book, the information in the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I'll put the information about that. If you're watching this on a recording, I'll put information about that in the comment bits. but it's that you have a trigger, right? Which is that idea of taking action. What is going to cause you to take action? Getting that next storage bill, or I want to continue talking about it. I really want to do this particular thing. So now I'm going to figure out how I can afford it by letting go of the things that I'm not enjoying or are not serving me or whatever those might be. And then once you do that particular, execute that particular habit or action, then you get the reward. Now, I will say that it can be even the short-term goals, if they're 6 months, a year out, waiting for that particular reward can take a while, or it can be a little demotivating. So little things that you can do for yourself that will allow you to stay motivated is key. And actually, I have a friend, I'm not going to call her out because I know that she watches this, but she has been very successfully losing weight for the last 6 months, 7 months. And one of the things, we were hanging out a while back, and one of the things that she talked about, she says, I don't have a lot of bad habits, but I just really love my Starbucks.
Yep.
And that's something that she treats herself every day. And because she knows that she gets to have that Starbucks, it's easier for her to say no to other things. Yeah. And to me, I have a similar habit. It's not Starbucks for me, but it's sugar-coated popcorn. My son and I might have a little habit about. But because I know that I can have that on a regular basis, it's just so much easier for me to say no to the other things. And I liken it to this idea of letting go of a little bit of steam at a time. So you can translate that. I always joke around, cash or calories, it's the same thing. You have so much of it, you just have to figure out how to get the most enjoyment out of what you do have. So from a money perspective, if you can figure out how to get little bits of enjoyment here and there, whether it is going to Starbucks, if that's going to keep you in line of the bigger goal, then go for it, enjoy it, do it. Again, this is what has made our success rate with clients so high, is because it is about working within human nature. And we're human, so we're our own guinea pigs.
Yeah, we see that. Yeah, and I think the other thing on that is, we talked about this, I think we talked about it in the past, and I know that I just wrote about it last week. This is certainly not a case of one size fits all. Going back to why we've been successful is because we spend a fair amount of time with each client determining what motivates them. And sometimes it's as easy as saying, what motivates you? And other times you have to really ask a bunch of different questions and find out what the real story is. And then once we find that, then that's what we work with the clients for their rewards. And again, we're not tricking them. We'll tell them exactly, okay, this seems like this is important to you. Are we right? Okay, let's set something up so that this works with it. The idea is not to trick somebody, it's to give them the tools to be successful.
That reminds me, you wrote a fantastic article, I think it was last week, called There's Not an App for That. Yeah. And the article was stemmed by the amount of times that we've heard from people in the industry that have told us, oh, you guys should write an app. And we're like, but you can't. Appreciate it. Yeah. We would love to be able to do that. But it's about not just listening and asking certain questions. Yeah, you could probably do that with, and figure out an algorithm and everything. But there's a line that you wrote in that article that is so powerful. And that is, sometimes when you're talking with a client and you're trying to figure out what is going to work for them, how do you create that plan that's going to work for them? It's about what they don't say. Yeah. Yeah. And you can't get an app to figure that out. And so it's what is that motivation and working towards that. So the initial idea of I feel like we've talked a lot about the getting traction in the action, but that taking action really is listening to yourself. And if it's not an outside trigger of tax day, that's when our phone rings, tax day and January 1st. Yep. But all throughout the year, there are opportunities that if you think about, wow, if I took action today and I was able to finally get rid of that $200 a month storage unit, what else could I spend that money on?
Exactly. And there's a couple of things to look at that. One of them is always looking at the idea of, I have a finite amount of resources, time, energy, money. Yeah. Am I spending those resources the way that I want to? And how could I improve my life if I spent them differently? And the other thing that I'll come back to, I was talking with Melissa earlier today about this. My father had a favorite expression, which was, do something even if it's wrong. And a good friend of mine is a filmmaker, and he's always advocating within the community, if you want to be a filmmaker, make films. Get out there and just keep making films. Don't worry if it's not perfect. You'll get better as you keep doing it, but keep doing it. Keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. You have to get started, and you have to be consistent, and you have to always keep moving. And you don't want to, going back to my father's adage, do something even if it's wrong. It's a little bit of oversimplification. We don't want you to do something that's crazy wrong. But what the point that my father was making, and also my friend Nick was making, is if you get paralyzed in your search for perfection or the perfect time, you're never going to do anything. And it doesn't need to be perfect or the perfect time. Get started, make adjustments. Before I started this career, I was a physicist. One of the basic principles of physics is Newton's laws of motion. A body in motion will tend to stay in motion, and a body at rest tends to stay at rest. It's a lot easier to change course if you're already moving than if you're at a dead stop. So start moving, and then you can correct.
You made me think about one of the things that idea of, again, taking action, because we do have folks that we work with, there's a paralysis around that perfection. Well, the tracking system has to be absolutely perfect before I move forward with it, or whatever that might be. And I found that life has there is never perfection, right? Your spending plan adjusts almost on a monthly, every other month basis. We really think of them as living documents. But if you think of life as just getting started and then editing as you go, I always think of myself I used to think of myself as a writer and then a speaker and all the other stuff. But I started to think of myself more as an editor now, because I just puke stuff up on paper. And then I go in and I kind of organize it. And then really where I love the process is in editing that, whether it's adding bits to it or letting that go. And I think that that's a lot of this aspect. I talk with clients about the idea that much of this process comes in layers. So you have to just start initially, right? Yep. And then from there, and I also joke that there's different levels of savvy living.
Yeah, and you're not going to start off and be a master right away. Melissa's husband and Melissa teach martial arts. Nobody is going to show when you start teaching somebody how to do a certain move. Very few people are going to get it exactly right the first time. They're going to get out there and they're going to get it somewhere between 30 and 60% correct. You say, good job, do that 20 times. And then next week you take one of those flaws, you fix that. Don't fix all of them. And then, in 5 years, start black belt, or whatever it is. So it's the same thing. You don't have to be perfect to get started.
And just try not to break your arm during your black belt test like I did.
But you went back and did it.
I did. I went back and I got my next one and the next one. But the thing we were talking about earlier before we started the session, my husband Paul owns a martial arts school, mixed martial arts school here in Redwood City. And I'm always fascinated by what made somebody decide that was the day they were going to get started. Like, I'm fascinated by this idea of triggers, because it's hard to take action. Again, it's that, inertia. Like the idea of inertia, to just get started. Like, what is, unfortunately, sometimes it's getting rammed from behind.
Sometimes simple. Yep, exactly.
But I love that idea. And so if you take nothing else away from today's session and today's specific topic, it's that idea of looking around for what is it that you want to take action on. Is it around your finances? Is there an area where you want to just do a little bit better? Well, what's the one small thing that you can do, building on that idea of success, which is a huge thing that martial arts taught me. I probably would have broken every bone in my body if I tried for my black belt test the first time around. I'm going to laugh about that for a while. But yeah, it's thinking of, or when you're dissatisfied by something, instead of just being used to that feeling of being dissatisfied with it, let that, now that you've heard me say that, use that as a trigger to take some kind of action. And I think that we should not have this conversation without talking about the power of deadlines.
Yes. This is something that we talk about in the book. We talk about it in our presentations, is someday never comes. So you don't want to take your trip someday.
Or tomorrow.
You
got hard deadline. Decide that. Let's take for example, the storage unit aspect. And actually, I'm glad I brought that up again because there was an element of that I wanted to add to. So if you decide that, you know what, I want to go ahead and get rid of my storage unit. Well, the beauty of that is there's a built-in deadline that it's the next bill, right? You want to get rid of that storage unit before the next bill comes. So that's one thing. For that particular category, though, and this is like the best part of our job. For that particular category, there can be a lot of emotion around it.
Yes.
Right. So every category, there's different elements. Some are high emotion, some are low emotion. Yeah. But I find that with storage units, very often people purchase them. Maybe perhaps a member of the family died and their garage is already overwhelmed, and so they'll buy a storage unit to put the stuff in there.
Because they don't want to throw away all the memories.
Right. They don't want to throw away all the memories, but then it's also a bit emotional to have to go through everything, plus physically tiring, right? Yeah. And so it's just easier to pay that bill for however long. Yep. We've worked with clients, we've worked with widows, we've worked with children that have inherited their parents' items, grandparents' items, that have for years paid on storage units just simply because it was too hard or too emotional or physically hard. There's one client I worked with in particular in Decatur, Georgia, and that was the case as she had inherited, different clients. There's two different clients here. One had inherited family member stuff and it was also just physically too much for her. So she finally decided her son was traveling at the time, so she hired a couple of her friends' sons, and they were able to get through everything. And the weight, the emotional weight off her shoulders was huge. There's another client in Atlanta, Georgia, that it was her and her husband had divorced, and it was the stuff, she was the one that moved out of the house. So it was all this furniture that was too big for her apartment, but she didn't want to get rid of. And then pretty soon she started to realize, and this was not me, I did not guide her towards this, but as we were working together, she started to realize most of that was just she was holding on to out of spite, which I can appreciate. I really actually can. And so as we were working together, she realized that was not serving her. And so she decided to go ahead and let that go. And similarly, hired somebody to help her. Sometimes that thought is, wow, I don't want to spend the money to hire somebody, but you're spending that amount or more over the course of time. So that particular category, again, it comes back to there's not an app for that. There's not an app for figuring out why do you still have this when
financially it doesn't make sense. Maybe emotionally it doesn't make sense, but you still have to address the underlying cause. Yeah. Or you're not. We have to address the underlying cause, or the client is not going to get on board with the program, and they're much more likely to fail. And we don't want that because, one, we actually do care about our clients. Most of them are very nice people, and we want them to succeed and be happy because that's what we're here for, and that way they give good recommendations. So we get at the end of the day, we're running a business, so you can't ignore that. Yeah. So, but you have to understand that. So you have to look at yourself. What will be the motivation for you to take that first step of action? And it is different for everybody. It depends on what other circumstances are. But identify your ultimate end goal, and then what are the intermittent goals that you can reward yourself upon completion so that you stay motivated while you're going for that ultimate goal.
Yeah, and that deadline.
And the deadline. Yeah. Again, I agree with you. That is really key because once you have a deadline that really forces you into having a plan and a schedule, and then you're starting to do things, and then it becomes that becomes a little bit of a negative reinforcer, but that can still work. The whole idea of, crap, I'm supposed to do this today, so I get, here's the task I have to complete today, so that I end up at my goal in 2 weeks, 6 months. And if I don't do today, then that means that tomorrow I have to do twice as much because my end goal doesn't move. Yeah. Your end goal doesn't get to move. And so then, you don't want to start having that snowball. So that can be a little bit of a negative reinforcement to keep you going. It's like, I really don't want to do this today, but I better because I don't want to do twice as much tomorrow. Getting that deadline and getting that schedule out is key. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm working with a client in North Carolina right now. We typically have maybe 4 to 6 meetings with clients depending on what their situation is. And we started working together, I want to say it was mid-February. And one of the things that she had told me is because of the work that she's doing with us and the work that she's doing with her financial advisor, she feels like the first quarter of this year has really been about doing the hard stuff, but knowing that it needs to be done. And it probably should, I believe she had alluded at one point, it probably should have been done 5 years ago. But she just realizes this is a bit of if you've ever had in life, the endurance times, right? And this is her particular situation. There are folks out there you're watching right now that maybe it's just a little thing that you need to do to get you to where you want to be. And then there are other people where there's just, whether it's their business, rental homes, there might be a lot more going on. And so there's a lot more organization that needs to be done. I's that need to be dotted, T's that need to be crossed. And so it's because I don't want to end this with endurance, no. But it is that idea of, sometimes we do have to do the hard stuff. And what I loved though is she was focused on the other side of it. She just knows that this is, and she even mentioned what a pleasant experience it has been, which made me feel nice. Good because that's the goal, right? How do you something that needs to be done? How do you make it as enjoyable as possible? And so that she's focused on the other side of that and is getting everything taken care of, and she's gonna rock and roll. Actually, she's killing it.
What I gather from that is just the idea that there's a lot that goes into taking that first action, but once you get things going and it's sustaining and the ball is rolling, it takes a lot less to keep it going. It becomes a regular habit. Things are orderly. You have a system. It's not all new and very strange and intimidating. And when the system is maintaining itself, you're seeing those results. You're seeing those rewards on a regular basis. Yeah. But take the action now. Figure out what will trigger that for you, and go for it.
Yeah. So if we were to give you a homework assignment, if that was something that you were interested in, I believe the homework assignment would be either the one thing that you've already decided that you need to take action on, create that deadline, right? Create that deadline, make that happen. Or if you feel like it's just everything, right? We've worked with folks like that where they don't even know where to start. Then what I would suggest is, and this is hard, listen when you get dissatisfied. Those moments when you get dissatisfied, sometimes we get used to that, which is an awful thing. We should never continue and be in that state. But when you hear yourself say something like, I'm just so sick of this or whatever it might be, there's an opportunity for you to be able to decide, is this the thing that you're going to initially take action on? And I can tell you from my own experience in shifting my own personal finances, which was the catalyst for this whole thing, being in a very, very bad space, financially, and have in complete ignorance of any money skills or what that might look like. It really was, okay, I'm just going to do this thing. Okay, now I'm going to do this thing. And even when I figured I'm just going to do this thing, I couldn't even think about the other things. I wasn't even that far, but it was just that, okay. And I'm such a huge fan of that building on success, which I talk about martial arts a lot, and what a gift it was for me. I learned that if I just put in the work and I just showed up for class and I sweat, that I could get to that next step, that next belt, whatever it is. It's same thing for the rest of your life. Same thing for your goals. Just be willing to take those baby steps, because it's not the big stuff. The big stuff, we don't typically have opportunities to be able to just knock stuff out. It's all the little stuff that we do every day in order to knock those big things out. And there's a better quote in there somewhere. I'll figure it out and see if I can post it online. Yeah,
but you're building success and you're creating the habits. And along those lines, you don't need to spend a lot of time prioritizing and making sure that you're tackling the most important one right now. You'll get to them all. Yeah. All right. Start somewhere. Make that change, celebrate that success, move on to the next thing. And as you get more successful, again, you get that's positive reinforcement. You're also building the tools that are going to let you conquer the more challenging problems. So don't always start with the most difficult one. It may seem like it's the most important, but that may not be, you may not need to do that.
I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up.
Awesome.
Well done.
Where are we?
So this is the first episode of us doing weekly shows, and we dropped the time down to a half hour. So it's a little shorter than usual, or shorter than what you've experienced before, but this is what we're doing. We're here every single week, 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We live in California. And join us. You can next time not only just watch us, but you can register with Caffeine TV. It's free, and then you can interact with us. That being said, though, there are ways you can interact with us throughout the week. So we are very active on social media, specifically Facebook, LinkedIn. We do a bit with Twitter, and I'm still trying to figure out Instagram, which I will fully confess.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So yeah, like us on all of those. And then also these episodes of Caffeine TV, they get uploaded to YouTube. So if you are watching us on YouTube right now, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, as they say. And share anything that you see. We're trying to spread the word and help get people savvy.
LivingTheSavvyLife.com, our website.
TheSavvyLife.com is our website.
TheSavvyLife.com.
You've had a rough couple of days.
TheSavvyLife.com is our website. Living the Savvy Life is
our
the
book.
goal. So the thing you can do there is you can actually find links for the videos there. You can find blog and articles there, and some tools to help you. And you can also find the list there.
Yep, access to our weekly newsletter.
Okay.
All right.
So on that weekly newsletter, we give you 3 tips. We give you articles and then 3 tips or challenges, tasks to do for the week that will help you live a savvy life.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.